Today, we are peering into one of the most persistent, most unnerving figures in literary history, the doppelganger.
Right.
And this isn't just, a spooky twin from a ghost story. It's the externalized self, the shadow that walks alongside you.
And it asks some very hard questions.
It really does. Questions about who you are, and often it threatens to replace you completely.
That's right. And for centuries, the self, the idea of who you are, it felt relatively fixed. It was anchored by these massive external forces.
Mm.
But the 19th century just shattered that illusion.
And that's where our sources come in.
Exactly. Our
Yeah.
sources today trace the precise evolution of this figure, specifically through 4 absolutely seminal works from that era.
These aren't just old stories. You have to see them as a kind of psychological roadmap.
They absolutely are. They detail the fracturing of modern identity.
So our mission in this deep dive is to give you a shortcut to understanding that progression. We're going to see how 4 authors, Poe, Dostoyevsky, Conrad, and Stevenson, used this concept of the fractured self to map what was happening to identity.
And they were mapping it during one of the most profound and, frankly, turbulent historical moments.
That historical context is so important.
It's everything. Absolutely everything. If you really want to understand why the double emerged with such terrifying force in the 19th century, you have to look at the foundations that were just crumbling away.
What were those foundations?
Well, for millennia, the individual self was anchored. It was anchored securely by tradition, by a really rigid theology, and by a fixed social role. You knew who you were because society told you, the church told you.
Here was a clear hierarchy.
A very clear hierarchy. But then the Enlightenment, all the democratic revolutions, the Industrial Revolution, they started to tear those absolute structures down.
And the self lost its fixed reference point.
It was set adrift.
So if God is no longer the absolute center, and tradition is being constantly challenged by, scientific discovery, think Darwin, what happens to the human being?
The center of gravity shifts. It shifts inward.
Mm-hmm.
But what it finds there is, well, it's chaos.
Not stability.
No, not at all. When those external anchors crumble, the self becomes inherently unstable. It's fractured, it's full of contradictory desires. So it starts to externalize its anxieties, its ambitions, its forbidden parts.
And it confronts itself literally as the other.
Precisely. The double is the perfect, unnerving literary mechanism for processing that sudden, terrifying loss of stability. It's the self looking in the mirror and seeing a stranger.
Or worse.
Or worse, a competitor, someone who might be better at being you than you are.
The self became this movable, malleable, terrifying thing.
It did.
So for you, the listener, our goal today is to track the double across 4 really distinct guises. This is our roadmap. We're tracing 4 different fates for the divided self.
Okay, let's lay them out.
First, we have the double as conscience, which leads to desolation. That's in Poe's William Wilson.
Then the shift.
A huge shift. The double as a social rival, leading to madness, in Dostoyevsky's The Double.
Then we pivot again dramatically.
Yes, to the double as the shadow self that needs to be integrated, which leads to wholeness, in Conrad's The Secret Sharer.
And finally?
Finally, the double as a scientific experiment that goes completely catastrophic.
Leading to total annihilation.
Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
It's quite a journey.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this journey. Part 1. The moral double and identity collapse. And we begin with Edgar Allan Poe, his 1839 tale, William Wilson.
Right, and Poe gives us what a lot of analysts call the most morally austere version of the double.
Austere, that's a great word for it.
It is. This isn't a complex psychological drama filled with social nuance, not yet. It's a stark, almost geometric moral confrontation.
And the setting itself emphasizes that.
It does. The sources point out how the setting, this stifling, oppressive British boarding school, is really meant to symbolize the rigid moral structure that Wilson is trying to escape. It's all about rules and boundaries.
Right. And the narrator, who is also named William Wilson, is haunted by this double. And the double is a near physical match. Same name, same birthday, same movements.
The physical proximity and the near identical nature of the two is, I think, Poe's genius here.
How so?
It removes any ambiguity. This isn't just some random person who looks like you. This is you, made visible. It's an undeniable, externalized part of your own being.
But the double's function is so specific and so defined. And this is what really separates Poe from the later writers we're going to discuss.
It's absolutely singular. He is not a rival competing for success. He's not a tempter encouraging sin. He's not even a mocker trying to ruin the narrator's life for fun.
He just Interrupts.
He interrupts Wilson specifically and exclusively at moments of vice. That's his only job.
It's fascinating how limited his power is, though. Let's detail that restraint for a minute. Why isn't the double, the hero who swoops in and saves Wilson from himself?
Because his power lies purely in restraint, not in action. The analysis we reviewed really notes that he never acts independently. He never overpowers the narrator.
So what does he do?
He simply whispers, obstructs, and embarrasses. His voice is described as being weak, almost muffled. His face is always slightly obscured, just enough to be maddeningly indistinct from the narrator's own.
It's like a conscience should be. Not a shout, but a whisper.
A persistent whisper. Think about that. He's not fighting to take over Wilson's life. He is fighting for the quality of that life, for its virtue. He's the externalized ethical boundary.
And he only appears when Wilson is about to cross a line.
A specific ethical threshold. A moment of cheating at cards, an act of drunken cruelty, a moment of profound moral lapse. He's the alarm that goes off right before the crime.
It's the ultimate internalized break made external, isn't it?
That's a perfect way to put it.
If the double were a successful rival, like we'll see later, the stakes would be external money, love, status.
Right.
But because Poe's double is purely conscience, the stakes are purely internal. They're purely moral.
And that's why the narrator finds him so intolerable.
Exactly. It's not because he's a physical threat. He's a threat to his self-delusion. He is the mirror that cannot be avoided, the inconvenient witness to his own moral decay.
And that, of course, leads us directly to the culmination of the horror. Wilson becomes so enraged by this constant low-level ethical surveillance.
This nagging.
This constant nagging, yes. He becomes so enraged that he seeks to violently eradicate it. He corners the double in Rome, and in a fit of rage, he kills his namesake with a sword.
And that act of murder is immediately revealed to be something much worse.
It's an act of catastrophic self-annihilation.
This scene provides the specific textual nugget, the key quote we need to really understand Poe's vision. As the narrator stands over the dying double, the double transforms.
He transforms into a perfect reflection of Wilson himself. And he delivers that chilling realization.
And the voice.
Yes. The double speaks, but his voice is now Wilson's own. In me didst thou exist, and in my death, see by this image, which is thine own, how utterly thou hast murdered thyself.
Wow.
It's not a supernatural curse. It's an immediate metaphysical diagnosis of total moral emptiness.
I want to linger on the implication of this for a moment. Poe's double is externalized conscience, and the resulting desolation is the key takeaway.
It is.
If the double were just a rival, Wilson would have achieved freedom by killing him. He would have won.
But the sources argue, and I think very powerfully, that the self can survive the loss of virtue. I mean, Wilson lived a life of vice for years.
But it cannot survive the annihilation of moral awareness.
And that is what the double represented.
That distinction between losing virtue and losing awareness is massive. It's what gives the story its unique chill.
It is. Losing virtue means you know you're doing wrong, but you choose to do it anyway. You still have a moral compass, even if you choose not to follow it.
But annihilating moral awareness.
That means you've killed the inner voice. You've destroyed the mechanism that judges right from wrong. And what's left is not freedom. It's a moral void, a desolation that can never be filled.
And the narrative structure really supports this point. Once the double is gone, the story loses all its tension.
It just stops.
There is no one left to whisper or obstruct or embarrass him. He is free to sink completely into his chosen vices, but he is fundamentally alone, terrified, and morally inert.
Poe sets the baseline for us here. Denial of the moral self leads to emptiness and an irreversible loss of identity.
Okay, let's transition now, because we're moving from Poe's specific, almost theological, Gothic framework to something, well, something far more modern.
Like psychological.
Yeah.
And socially relevant.
We jump a few years ahead to Fyodor Dostoyevsky's 1846 novella, The Double, and we shift the focus completely from internal guilt to external social pressure and ego fragmentation.
This is a huge seismic shift in the literature of the double, a massive one. We abandon those shadowed, stifling halls of moral choice.
And we enter the cramped, labyrinthine, suffocatingly bureaucratic offices of St. Petersburg.
Exactly. And the protagonist, Mr. Golyadkin, is fundamentally different from Poe's William Wilson. Golyadkin is not driven by some deep-seated vice.
No, he's driven by crushing social anxiety.
Intense status insecurity. and the suffocating weight of bureaucratic insignificance in a city that is defined by rank.
Golyadkin is a nervous wreck before the double even appears on the scene. He desperately wants to be noticed, to be accepted, to be understood by his peers.
But he just can't. He lacks the social skills, the confidence, the inherent cunning to succeed.
He is invisible, and that invisibility is destroying him.
And so his double reflects this hyper-modern bureaucratic reality perfectly. Unlike Poe's morally superior double, Golyadkin's rival is socially triumphant.
What does that mean exactly, socially triumphant?
The analysis details him as witty, manipulative, incredibly self-assured, and instantly admired.
So everything the original anxious Golyadkin longs to be.
But catastrophically fails to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't just look like Golyadkin. He looks like the successful Golyadkin, the one who gets the promotion.
And that is the essential terror of Dostoyevsky's version. The double isn't a conscience demanding repentance. He's a competitor demanding replacement.
Yes.
The new Golyadkin is a nightmare precisely because he is better at the bureaucratic and social maneuvering that defines Golyadkin's entire existence.
He is terrifyingly effective, just scarily good at it. He successfully infiltrates Golyadkin's mundane life almost instantly.
You see it happening piece by piece.
We see him systematically displacing the original Golyadkin in status, in reputation, and, most terrifyingly, in reality itself.
He's seen shaking hands with Golyadkin's boss.
Warmly shaking hands, yes. He makes an impressive speech at a dinner party where the original Golyadkin was completely ignored. And he starts taking Golyadkin's place at work, slowly making the original look superfluous, redundant.
The persecution becomes relentless, but it's fundamentally based on social rejection.
It's a social death.
The original Golyadkin is left constantly trying to catch up, to prove his original identity and reclaim his rightful, albeit mediocre, place in the hierarchy.
It becomes a social and existential free fall, fueled by this intense paranoia. He becomes obsessed with tracking the double, trying to expose him as a fraud.
But nobody believes him.
Nobody believes him because the double is so charming and competent. Why would they?
What's so fascinating here is the core psychological uncertainty of it all. As the reader, you are constantly asked to question reality.
The sources really emphasize this. Golyadkin cannot clearly distinguish between his inner collapse and external persecution.
So is the double real?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? He appears both undeniably real, an autonomous agent stealing his life, and at the same time utterly unreal. A projection of Golyadkin's own crippling insecurities, his repressed ambition, his self-loathing.
This ambiguity is what makes Dostoyevsky feel so chillingly modern even today.
I agree.
We are no longer debating a simple metaphysical truth about conscience, like in Poe. We are grappling with the mechanics of a truly fractured mind under the intense pressure of social comparison.
Exactly. Dostoyevsky is far less interested in religious guilt than he is in ego fragmentation that's driven by the external world.
The breakdown of self, it's driven less by personal sin and more by these modern external pressures.
Right. Ambition that cannot be fulfilled, intense resentment of other success, and the constant suffocating need for social comparison and acceptance within a rigid, judgmental system.
So in a sense, the double here embodies the perfect performance of the self that might have been.
The assertive, cunning, successful bureaucrat who knows exactly how to network and impress.
And when that ideal self appears not as an inspiration, but as a rival who starts winning.
The original self has nowhere to retreat. It has no ground to stand on.
It's like imposter syndrome turned outward and given a separate life.
That connection to modern imposter syndrome is profound, especially for you listening. Golyadkin is terrified he's going to be exposed as a fraud.
And Dostoyevsky grants that fear a physical reality.
The fraud is exposed.
Yeah.
But it's the original Golyadkin who is deemed the imposter.
And the final destination is terribly modern. It's clinical.
It is. Golyadkin's eventual fate is not the moral tragedy of a fatal duel, like in Poe. It's psychological implosion and institutionalization.
The world rejects the failed, anxious Golyadkin and keeps the successful, socially functioning double.
And that cements the original's retreat into madness and confinement. He's literally locked away.
It is a much darker statement about the transactional nature of the modern world.
I think so. Poe said if you kill your moral self, you are desolate. Dostoyevsky says if you fail to be socially adequate, society will replace you with a version that works.
And you, the original, will be confined and forgotten.
Which is, in some ways, a more terrifying fate.
The metaphysical question just shifts so radically here. We move from the rigid morality of what is good in Poe
And the unstable social reality of what holds the self together at all in Dostoyevsky.
And if external validation and social success are the glue,
Then failure in those realms means the self simply falls apart. The fragility and instability of the modern self, unmoored from tradition and dependent on social approval, is just laid brutally bare.
okay, let's take a major thematic pivot now, a big one.
We do one.
We're transitioning from these narratives of moral and psychological collapse to something profoundly different. A rare narrative of successful integration. Section 3 talks us to Joseph Conrad's 1910 novella, The Secret Sharer.
And this is such a necessary narrative break, frankly. Conrad's novella offers a striking counterpoint to the tragic fates we just saw in Poe and Dostoyevsky.
Because it's a narrative of integration.
Yes, rather than destruction or madness. It suggests that there is a possibility of hope and competence in the confrontation with the self.
The setting is immediately different. We are on a ship in the Far East, far removed from the stifling boarding schools or bureaucratic offices.
A sense of openness.
And the protagonist is a young man, a nervous, cautious, overly conscientious captain who has just taken command of his first ship.
And he is paralyzed by his own inexperience. He feels like a fraud.
And then, literally floating alongside the ship, he encounters Leggett, the fugitive sailor.
Leggett is a double, but his identity is established through action, not simply through birth or, shared DNA. Leggett has killed a man on his previous ship.
Under what the sources carefully label morally ambiguous circumstances.
Right. He is violent, he is decisive, and he is on the run from justice.
And the captain recognizes him instantly. But, and this is the key distinction, it's not a physical mirror image.
No, it's not like Poe or Dostoyevsky.
The recognition is purely internal. It's an acknowledgement of a shared identity in temperament, isolation, and latent authority.
The captain sees in Leggett the parts of himself he needs to assume his role effectively, the parts he's afraid of.
But here's the interesting paradox. Leggett is a killer, a social outcast, a forbidden figure. So why does the captain feel immediate sympathy rather than disgust?
Because Leggett is decisive.
Exactly. The captain is paralyzed by doubt. When Leggett killed a subordinate in a fit of temper, he was acting with a sudden, overwhelming confidence and authority, a kind of violence the captain completely lacks.
So the relationship is characterized by sympathy, not persecution.
Because Leggett is not a persecutor, he's a dark, necessary guide.
Exactly. Leggett represents the qualities the captain desperately needs to assume his leadership role. Decisiveness, the willingness to use violence if necessary, and unshakable command.
The captain knows intellectually that to lead this crew, he has to shed his youth and his hesitation, but he doesn't know how to access that part of himself, that shadow.
So he finds a way to access it externally. By physically hiding Leggett in his own cabin, which is the most private, sacred space on the ship, the captain symbolically shelters his own shadow self.
He is literally sharing his identity with the forbidden element.
Think about the tension that creates. The captain is running his ship, interacting with his crew and his officers, all while a murderer, the externalized, dangerous version of himself, is hiding mere inches away, sleeping on the floor.
Every decision the captain makes is now filtered through Leggett's presence.
He has to become decisive.
Yeah.
He has to become quick-witted and cunning, not just for the sake of the ship alone, but to protect his secret.
This is so critical. He doesn't fight the shadow. He harbors it. He recognizes that the part of Leggett that acted decisively, even violently, is the part the hesitant captain needs to internalize to prove himself capable of command.
The ship becomes a stage for his internal struggle. He's secretly practicing the necessary assertiveness to grow into his role.
It's a literal high-stakes process of individuation.
It is. The captain is taking the most dangerous, necessary parts of his psyche, the capacity for high-pressure, potentially violent, decisive action required by command, and he's integrating them in secret.
The source of his deepest anxiety, his lack of authority, is solved by confronting its externalized, potent form.
He's learning from his shadow.
And the turning point in the story is magnificent because it involves an act of high-risk seamanship.
A real test of command.
The captain has to sail the ship perilously close to the shore to allow Leggett to slip away undetected. And in doing so, he risks the entire ship. But that decisive act, that willingness to risk everything, fueled by Leggett's shadow presence, proves to the captain and his crew that he is capable of command.
The resolution, then, is not destruction or madness. It's release. When Leggett swims away, having been hidden just long enough for the captain to internalize his necessary qualities, the captain emerges whole.
He has mastered his ship.
And more importantly, he has mastered himself.
The double has served its purpose, not to dominate or destroy, but to be recognized, utilized, and then released.
Psychologically, this is a clear narrative of individuation.
Yeah.
It suggests that wholeness requires the acknowledgement, not the eradication of the forbidden self.
Conrad offers the only truly hopeful roadmap among our four texts for dealing with the double.
It's the only one. If Poe is tragedy and Dostoyevsky is psychological ruin, Conrad is self-mastery achieved through a dangerous but necessary internal negotiation.
Okay, now we come to the fourth and perhaps most famous example, and the one that provides the most explicit and scientific warning about the dangers of division. Robert Louis Stevenson's 1886 novella, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
This brings us right back to destruction, but the mechanism is terrifyingly deliberate.
How so?
Stevenson's contribution is the most cautionary because Jekyll does not simply encounter his double by accident. He intentionally, and with a kind of scientific hubris, manufactures him using chemical means.
He literally uses chemistry to fracture his own integrated personality. And we have to understand Jekyll's intent here because it wasn't initially malicious, was it?
Not at all.
Yep.
Jekyll's primary motivation was a misguided form of, let's call it moral hygiene, or what he called moral duality.
He was tired of the tension.
He's tired of the tension between his respectable public life and his secret, darker desires. He wanted to be good without the struggle.
His intent was to isolate all the disowned, darker desires, the part of him that wanted to indulge without consequences, and put them into the separate, pure entity of Hyde.
The intellectual hope was to compartmentalize the bad, so the remaining Dr. Jekyll could be purely virtuous and respected. No more hypocrisy.
He was trying to game the system, to game morality and nature itself.
I will be good, and this little flask of chemicals will hold all the bad stuff, allowing me to switch identities at will. That was the dream.
But the experiment fails profoundly because, as the analysis states, division empowers what it isolates.
And this failure is Stevenson's crucial insight. It's a powerful warning against denial. Hyde, the embodiment of dithoned desire, does not remain a weak, contained entity.
No, he grows stronger, more autonomous, and far more cruel.
And meanwhile, the good Dr. Jekyll weakens proportionally. The message is just chilling. Evil does not shrink when compartmentalized. It metastasizes.
And the physical contrast between the two is key to understanding the metaphysical failure.
It is. Jekyll is tall, handsome, respected. Hyde is small, deformed, almost ape-like. He generates an instant, visceral feeling of disgust in everyone who sees him, even though they can't quite pinpoint why.
Because he's not a whole person.
He's the concentrated essence of rejected selfhood. Pure evil without a conscience to temper it.
The consumption accelerates so rapidly. Jekyll initially has to take the potion to turn into Hyde, but soon the transformation begins to happen spontaneously.
Even without the drug. It starts happening while Jekyll is sleeping, or merely contemplating some evil act. This shows the will of Hyde is asserting dominance over Jekyll's control.
We need to contrast Hyde with the previous doubles to really see the full depth of Stevenson's warning. Let's look at the three major differences in function.
Okay, first, integration is completely impossible.
Right. Unlike Conrad's legate, who could be acknowledged and integrated into the captain's personality, Hyde is pure malignancy.
He cannot be acknowledged because he is the total rejection of morality.
Yeah.
He must be destroyed. There's nothing to learn from him.
Second, restraint is completely absent. While Poe's William Wilson double constantly restrained the narrator from crossing ethical thresholds.
Hyde does the exact opposite.
Yeah.
He is pure license. He does not just allow transgression. He forces transgression. He revels in it.
And third, and most terrifyingly, he consumes.
He absolutely consumes. Dostoyevsky's double displaced the original socially, but the original Golyadkin remained Golyadkin until he was confined.
But Hyde.
Hyde does not just displace. He consumes the very essence of Jekyll. The moments when Jekyll is Hyde become longer. The moments when he is Jekyll become shorter.
Until the final act.
Until the final act, where Jekyll has to choose total annihilation suicide to stop Hyde's autonomous, escalating evil.
The warning is unmistakable, and it resonates with a kind of scientific fatalism.
It does. To deliberately fracture the self, believing you can isolate and control the dark side through technology or chemistry, is to invite annihilation.
It shows the danger of believing that the dark parts of the self can be locked away and ignored through some kind of scientific shortcut.
The self, as Stevenson argues, will reassert its wholeness. And if you have rejected the dark part, that part will claim the whole. It will come back with a vengeance.
The irony is just staggering. Jekyll wanted moral purity, but by separating the evil, he made it concentrated, autonomous, and irresistible.
He intended hygiene, and he got catastrophe.
We have now tracked 4 distinct journeys of the fragmented self across the 19th century. We started with moral consciousness, and we've ended with scientific self-destruction. It's time to bring them all together in our final synthesis.
And these four fates, Poe, Dostoyevsky, Conrad, and Stevenson, they form a powerful, almost philosophical arc concerning self-knowledge.
They really illuminate the different outcomes when a part of the self is denied existence.
They do.
Let's quickly recap that progression for you, the listener, starting with the two tragic outcomes.
Okay. Fate number 1. Poe's William Wilson. The double represents the moral self. Its destruction results in desolation and a total moral emptiness.
Fate number 2, Dostoyevsky's The Double. The double represents social ambition and adequacy. Its appearance as a rival results in the collapse of identity, leading to madness and institutionalization.
Then we have the two outcomes that are predicated on either acknowledgement or rejection.
Fate number 3, Conrad's The Secret Sharer. The double represents the necessary, decisive shadow. Its integration results in wholeness and self-mastery.
And fate number 4, Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The double represents the totality of disowned desire. Its engineered division and subsequent rejection results in annihilation.
So the underlying question across all four is the absolute core of this deep dive.
What happens when part of the self is denied existence?
And the specific answers vary, but the consistent pattern is incredibly clear.
It is. Denial, whether it's moral, social, or scientific, leads inevitably to haunting, rivalry, madness, or outright monstrosity.
This is the common thread that binds these diverse narratives. It doesn't matter if the double is metaphysical, a silent conscience in Poe, or psychological, a triumphant rival in Dostoyevsky,
Or a necessary tempering violence in Conrad.
or purely chemical and monstrous in Stevenson. The rejected self does not politely go away. It gains strength in the shadows, and it demands to be dealt with.
And recognition, however dangerous it may be, is the only path that avoids ruin. Conrad is the proof of this difficult truth.
His captain didn't deny or destroy Leggett.
No, he acknowledged him. He learned the necessary lessons of decisiveness and command from him, and then he released him, having internalized the shadow's potency.
So this literature of doubles, it's far more than just spooky, dark storytelling.
So much more. It's a profound metaphysical staging of the crisis of modern identity.
It shows us that the self is not singular, it's not transparent, it's not stable. We inherently live in tension with our own otherness.
Our own capacity for both good and darkness.
The great danger, then, is not in meeting the double. It's not in recognizing the contradictions, the ambitions, the violence, or the conscience within ourselves.
No. The great danger is in refusing to know him, in attempting to compartmentalize or ignore those elements.
Because they will find a way out.
They always do. Either as a triumphant rival, a consuming monster, a source of paralyzing anxiety, or a destroyed moral compass.
So here is the key lesson we take away for you today. Understanding and integrating our own internal contradictions, however uncomfortable they make us, is absolutely essential for wholeness and stability.
The integrity of the self depends entirely on acknowledging the full spectrum of the shadow it casts.
And we'll leave you with the powerful statement that summarizes this entire progression, drawn from the deepest implications of the source material.
The double does not ask to be worshipped or obeyed. He asks only to be seen.
Mull on that one. What part of yourself are you refusing to see?